Oscars So White continues yet again. I really hoped we were past this. Okay, hi everyone from hopefully TikTok, Film Talk. Maybe some of you are brand new, but thank you for being here. With the TikTok ban and just everything happening with it coming back, but the future being uncertain, I decided to move over to YouTube for film content. I think this might actually end up being better because I feel like I'm pretty long-winded in my explanations and analyses and like thoughts on things. So I'll still make probably shorts like I've been doing, but I'm gonna definitely pivot into longer form content. So without further ado, let's get into what everyone's talking about right now, I feel like in the film world, besides Sundance, which is Oscar nominations and snubs. So I wanna first start out by saying that like, yes, the Oscars are the highest achievement, at least for most American filmmakers, that you can get in film, obviously. I think that it's subjective, obviously. What is a good movie? What is the best movie? You know what I mean? So I just kind of want to preface this video by saying these are all opinions. Everyone has in their heart who they think was snubbed, who should have got nominated, vice versa. So these are just my opinions on the biggest surprises and snubs I found when I was watching the nominations. Some notes here I'm going to look at, but I will say that the majority of this information I'm going to get into came from this really awesome letterboxd newsletter that they drop every Wednesday. So if you're a letterboxd user, you should get it in your inbox. If you're not on letterboxd and you love movies, I think it's the funnest form of social media. I am just really entering into this phase of social media, like I'm sure so many people are, where I just want to log my interests. I want to scroll on Pinterest and pin beautiful things. I want to log movies and read my friends on Letterboxd reviews. Social media where it's all about knowing people and seeing other people's lives, I think serves a purpose, but not really where I'm at. And I think there's like a larger shift happening. So I'll shout out the tidbits and the facts that the Letterboxd newsletter really got, you know, really granular with. But I think just to begin, I'm just gonna give my unfiltered thoughts and feelings. So one of the main things that I noticed watching, especially when the Best Picture noms rolled out, was why the heck is Sing Sing not in the Best Picture category? This is one of the best movies I've seen in the last year. Not even gonna lie. I think I ranked it, I'll put my ranking right here of my top 2024 movies. Sing Sing was number 2. I'll get into my number 1 in a second. That's a longer tangent. But I was like, where is the Best Picture nom? Where is the supporting actor nom for Clarence Macklin? I'm glad it's nominated in so many other categories. I think that's great. I think Coleman would be a long overdue win. I think the directors did an incredible job. Screenplay speaks for itself. So yeah, like I was saying in the beginning, like Oscars So White really strikes again. Despite there being so many international releases, Amelia Perez having, and I got this from the Letterboxd newsletter, they did a really good like just sort of fact sheet on all of this. Amelia Perez broke the record for number of nominations. It is 13. For frame of reference, the last films that held that record were Alfonso Cuarón's Roma at 10, and then Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, directed by Ang Lee, also had 10. Kind of crazy that they broke that record. That was surprising to me. Very surprising to me, but also not really that surprising. Let's be honest. It is the Oscars. Another thing that really pissed me off was Luca Guadagnino not being nominated for anything.
Huh?
Like, okay, here's the thing. I went and saw Challengers. I'm not a Challengers hater. I just like, I went to it and it's such a departure from what he has done and what he's been known for. I think I went into Challengers expecting similar touches, and I do think his hand was there. To me, there's just such a difference when he's doing something that feels like his story, not him personally, but something that means a lot to him and like is his sort of, that to me is his strength as a director and filmmaker. I respected the hell out of the feat of making Challengers. I'm really shocked that even the score wasn't nominated for anything, because like even though it wasn't my favorite movie, respect where respect is due. Like that was an incredible score, incredible cinematography. So that was disappointing. I think that he had 2 movies come out this year, obviously. So Queer was, oh my god, Queer was so good. I think that was my top 3 of my Letterboxd ranking. So I just really loved everything about Queer. I know it's not for everybody. It has these sort of surrealist elements to it. I think that worked. I think that worked great. I'm a huge Baz Luhrmann fan. He pulled so many similar elements of that with like the modern music, surrealist sequences. I saw a lot of that sort of inspiration, which was really cool. Queer just really worked for me on a lot of levels. I think it is a damn shame that Daniel Craig is not nominated for anything. I think that was, to me, like seeing a lot of his work, that was his most compelling role. I have truly, I'll put my letterboxd review up here, which is just like a long rant about the movie. I just honestly felt like it takes a lot as an actor to be able to go to the places that Daniel Craig went in that film, truly. To be honest with you, he was just in it. Like, he was locked in. He was so locked in. It was so good. Drew Starkey acted his ass off. I've been telling people since the first season of OBX in 2020, which was one of my pandemic watches, that boy can act. So I'm very, very excited to see where he goes. And I think it's amazing that Daniel Craig really immersed himself in the role. I felt so many connections to it while I was watching it. I felt like I completely understood Lee, who is played by Daniel Craig. I felt like I completely understood his motivations, why he was doing things. I felt what he was feeling. Maybe being a queer person myself, that kind of plays into it, obviously. I really resonated with like so many of the themes in the film. Hopefully that's not too long of a rant. Okay, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I have to point out that there is only one woman directed for Best Director this year, and there's only one film directed for Best Picture that is directed by a woman this year. Yeah, I know. In the year of our Lord, 2025. That is crazy. Don't get me wrong, I haven't seen The Substance. Don't come for me. I haven't watched it yet. I really, really want to. The thing about it is like, okay, positives. I love that horror is getting its moment. I think I would go so far to say that this is probably the most horror-friendly Oscars, at least in my lifetime, that I've personally seen. I think that's a great stride. I think we're already seeing horror sort of have this resurgence, and it's being taken seriously just from what's been resonating really well at Sundance Film Festival, as well as like I took a look at the South by Southwest lineup, and there's quite a bit of thriller, horror, suspense in there. I just think that's really awesome that it's finally being taken seriously. So we're seeing this sort of trend already play out post-Oscars. I think that'll be really interesting to watch this year. Oh, and also all 5 nominees for Best Director are first-time nominees, which is really cool. I think that's really awesome. That hasn't happened in a really long time. I am not gonna fact check that, but it is in the letterboxd newsletter. should you want to check out more little fun facts and trivia about that. Now, where I'm a little, I mean, you've probably already seen in my screen grabs of my top movies of 2024, Love Lies Bleeding, directed by Rose Glass. That, have you ever felt like a movie is made for you? Like made for you, like exactly. That's how I felt about this movie. I'm not even like a body horror fan or anything like that. To be honest, also, like the body horror wasn't that crazy. People were like really hyping it up like it was insane. It wasn't that bad. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on Max, I think. That movie, I felt like it was made for me. It had everything I personally look for. It had a gay storyline, a sapphic one no less. I was into that. Acting was incredible. Acted their asses off. The music, I love the 80s like as a period. I love the music. I love everything about like 80s aesthetics. So it was set in the 80s. I would personally love to do a period piece set in the 80s. I think that is very cool. Love Lies Bleeding hit all the marks for me. Did I necessarily expect for it to get like any crazy Oscar buzz? Like, no. Just to be honest, like, I was like, okay, this is pretty niche. Like, yes, it was made for me. It's probably not gonna be nominated for anything, but that is a shame because I thought it was really good. Let's be honest. Would they really nominate 2 women in that category, let alone 2 gay women? I don't know the Substance director's sexuality. I just know she wears pantsuits. So take with that what you will. I'm not trying to make any assumptions, but let's say that she was. Would they really nominate 2 queer women in that category? Probably not, let's be honest. And then I fear, okay, so I fear, so those are my like initial Oscar nom thoughts. This might start to shift into more of a rant, just letting you know. It's gonna shift into a bit of a rant. if you're a film nerd like me, you might find that really enjoyable. If not, you can click away now. That's pretty much all I'm gonna say about the Oscars at this point. I'm just honestly like, and what sparked this thought was looking at 2025 releases and noticing like this theme of like a lot of Frankenstein movies coming out. Like, don't get me wrong, it's due for, you know, sort of an update. I'm really excited for Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride. That looks dope. It's more from the perspective of the Frankenstein bride. I think it'll be really cool. Christian Bale's in it. Jessie Buckley, her longtime collaborator's in it. I think that'll be really good. I am very excited for Del Toro's Frankenstein as well. I'm not saying anything revolutionary here, but like, it's just so funny to me, like how trends happen in film. I was watching Interstellar for the first time the other day. That could be a whole, I'm not even gonna touch that because that could be a whole other video and why I think that is Christopher Nolan's masterpiece. You know how like in like the 2010s, like there were so many space movies, like so many, and probably even into like the latter mid to late 2000s, so many space movies. We were so obsessed with space. And it's so interesting to think about like the trends that are playing out now. Like I noticed, like I said, a lot of like Frankenstein movies. I noticed there's like a ton of action superhero movies on the docket too, with Fantastic Four and New Captain America, and there's plenty of others as well. Noticed that. I think the second Matt Reeves Batman. It's just so funny how these themes sort of like come and go in film. I think that's also interesting to think about when you're thinking about awards season and festival lineups. So of course for me, like I'm looking at it like a filmmaker, because if you don't know me from TikTok or my shorts, I am a filmmaker, I'm a writer director, and I am making my second short film right now. We're in the post-production process at the moment. I'll share more updates probably in separate videos. And so as a filmmaker, it's so interesting because when you are sort of like selling yourself like to a festival, or like or I shouldn't say selling yourself. When you're trying to sell your film to like a festival or production company or whatever, and you know, they might ask you, why this film now? That's kind of something common I see come up with like people making like the press kit like for their film. They're gonna ask you like, why now? You know what I mean? And so I think that's probably why trends like this happen. Like, oh, well, that movie did really well, so I'm gonna also do my space movie as well. Just using that example. I'm probably not, never say never, but I'm probably not gonna make a movie about space. It's not really my forte. Anyway, my point is that as a filmmaker, it can be helpful to know the context of these things and why it's important and why these things happen. I think there's probably a lot of World War II movies, for example, without going into a rant, but we really need to stop doing that. Can we please stop making World War II movies? We've literally seen it from every single angle. We've seen it from every possible angle. Why are we still doing them? Why? I know there weren't really any at the Oscars this year, but other awards. I'm like, why are we doing this? Why are we still doing this? Why are white men still making World War II movies? Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it right now, even though I just did. When you are in the process as a filmmaker and you're trying to sell your movie, people are going to ask you why, like, what are your comparisons, your comps, and why now? Why should we make this movie now? Why should we buy it from you? Why should we make it? Whatever it is. And it can be helpful to know what has been successful. This is where it gets into the marketing side of the business and playing the game and your art, which I probably will make some videos on, just overall thoughts on this. But yeah, to be honest, those are my first sort of initial Oscars thoughts, feelings, disappointments. They're like, don't talk shit on Amelia Perez. That was a sign. But so I'm definitely really excited and anxious to see who wins, what doesn't win, you know, how things play out. I think it's gonna be telling of what gets picked up and what gets made going forward. I think that, like I said in the beginning, these awards are so subjective, and I'm sure there's a million other movies I did not even mention that should have been considered. You know what I mean? Take all of this with a grain of salt. I would love to know in the comments what movies you were mad or happy about. And thank you so much for watching. If you're from Film Talk, if you're from TikTok, welcome. And if you're not, thank you for being here.